1. The Springfield Three. It's been 25 years since 3 Springfield women vanished without a trace. On June 6, 1992, 19-year-old Susie Streeter and her friend Stacy McCall, 18, graduated from Kickapoo High School. They spent the evening at graduation parties. In the early morning hours of June 7, the two retired to a home in the 1700 block of East Delmer Street, where Streeter lived with her mother, 47-year-old Cheryl Levitt. That's where the mystery begins. Levitt, Streeter and McCall were never seen again. When a friend called the home around 8 a.m., there was no answer. Over the course of the day, friends and family members made the rounds and made calls, checking out places they thought the women might have gone. Assumptions that the 3 women would return any minute gradually gave way to worry. On the evening of June 7, McCall's mother called police. The scene was concerning. Each of the women had a car, and all 3 were parked outside the unlocked house. Their purses were at the top of the stairs. Levitt and Streeter, both smokers, had left their cigarettes behind. McCall had left without her migraine medication, but there was no sign of a struggle. The only thing amiss was a porch light cover that had been busted. Friends of the women, however, had cleaned up the broken glass long before the cops were called, thinking they were being helpful. It was a highly publicized case from the start. The FBI was called. Search parties were organized. Within a week, the faces of Springfield's 3 missing women were broadcast on the television show America's Most Wanted. Tips poured in. A case that everyone expected to be quickly solved, however, turned into the city's most well-known cold case. It's always been open, King said in a recent interview late last month. It's an active investigation. The Springfield Police Department has turned over. There are no sworn officers left that were on the force back in 1992. Over the years, the case of the Springfield Three, or 3 megawatts, has been assigned to numerous investigators. Whenever one has retired, or been promoted, the case has been handed off to someone new, fresh eyes. For the last year and a half, the eyes have been those of Detective Scott Hill. King, as his direct supervisor, helps him respond to the tips that come in. There have been thousands over the years, although fewer as time has gone on. The majority that come in these days are identical, or similar, to previous ones. That's not to say they are unwelcome. After 25 years, the department's plea hasn't changed: keep them coming. A stubborn theory in some corners of the internet is that the women are buried underneath a South Springfield parking garage owned by Cox Health. Police spokeswoman Lisa Cox said the department first received that tip in 2006, but that the original tipster provided no evidence or logical reasoning behind this theory at that time or since then. 25 years later, the Springfield Three still resonates as a case it seems everyone local knows. Wilson, however, said that if you went back 30 years, it's likely most people could rattle off the details of the Young Brothers massacre. But now there are plenty of locals unaware of the 1932 gun battle that killed 6 law enforcement officers in present-day Republic. That's kind of the fear, Wilson said. As more time goes by, this case gets colder and colder. Still, he said, we're both optimistic. 2. Maura Murray. On February 9, 2004, 21-year-old Maura Murray was driving from University of Massachusetts Amherst, where she attended school, to Bartlett, New Hampshire, when she was involved in a one-car accident on Route 112 between 7 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. Her family does not know why she was driving to Bartlett. It was a school night. The car she was driving was supposed to go in for repairs, and Maura was told not to drive the car. Her father believes the car stalled when she was going around a turn and went into a snowbank. A bus driver who lived across the street from the accident site came out and asked if Maura was alright. She told the man that she had called the police. However, that was not true. The man did call the police, but by the time authorities arrived, Maura had vanished, apparently walking east on the road. There was evidence in the car that suggested that Maura had hit her head on the windshield during the accident. It is believed that Maura was intoxicated when she got into the accident. Maura vanished after leaving the accident and has not been seen since. Her family believes she may have been picked up by a stranger and met with foul play. Another theory is that Maura wandered off into the woods and died of exposure. Yet another theory suggests that Maura vanished voluntarily and for whatever reason does not want to be found. Maura's actions prior to her disappearance are considered to be suspicious. 4 days before she vanished, Maura was sent home early from her part-time job because she appeared to be extremely upset about something and was unable to do her work. It is unknown as to what she was upset about. On the day of her disappearance, Maura emailed her professors, telling them that there had been a death in the family, although that was untrue, and that she had to leave for several days. For unknown reasons, she had packed up all of her belongings in her dorm room, and left behind a personal note for her fiancé. She had also emailed him on the day of her disappearance, saying that she wanted to talk to him. The next day, her fiancé received a call that he believes was from Maura. She did not say anything, but he could hear her breathing. It is unknown as to why Maura was acting so bizarre prior to her disappearance, and her case remains unsolved. Maura's family, especially Fred, view the police's investigation as substandard. They point to their slow response and failure to thoroughly investigate every lead as the reason why Maura's fate remains a mystery. The police, meanwhile, have criticized Fred's involvement in the investigation. A 2014 article in Boston Magazine cites Jeff Strolzin, chief of the homicide unit at the New Hampshire Attorney General's office and the lead prosecutor in the Murray investigation, who said, "Fred Murray has been a difficult person to deal with from the beginning." Strolzin went on to describe Fred's anger at the police as understandable but misplaced. As relations between Maura's family and the police soured, rumors of infidelity and secret lives surfaced among armchair detectives and internet sleuths intent on cracking the case. James Renner, author of True Crime Addict: How I Lost Myself in the Mysterious Disappearance of Maura Murray, claimed to have evidence that Maura and her boyfriend were cheating on one another. Others believe that Maura may have been pregnant, bulimic, or both, and fled to escape judgment from her loved ones. Theories then split over whether she simply got lost and perished somewhere in the woods, purposefully disappeared to begin a new life, or if someone snatched her along Route 112. Despite legions of obsessives searching for the truth, there have been no definitive breaks in the case. That's why we're eager to dive back into Oxygen's The Disappearance of Maura Murray. Their search will examine the many unanswered questions that still haunt the investigation, and may change the case forever. 3. Leah Roberts. 23-year-old college senior Leah Roberts loved to travel, and on March 9, 2000, she left her home in North Carolina for a cross-country trip that lasted just 3 days and never returned. Investigators still don't know what happened. 2 weeks after she left, her Jeep was found wrecked down an embankment in Whatcom County, Washington, by a couple jogging along Canyon Creek Road. The road is a side route of the Mount Baker Highway that serves some isolated residences and logging camps in and around Mount Baker Snoqualmie National Forest, a short distance south of the Canadian border. She had reached Bellingham, Washington, by March 13, 5 days before the car was found. Her belongings, including shoes, clothing, books, CDs, her checkbook, and guitar were found in and around the Jeep, and inside they found food for her missing cat, B, a gas receipt, and a movie stub for American Beauty. However, there was no body, blood, signs of a struggle, and a large-scale search found nothing. Robbery didn't appear to be the motive because several $1,000s were found in the car, and a strange thing that investigators found was that blankets were covering the windows as if keeping out the rain. Also, investigators determined that the car had been traveling at least 40 miles per hour when it crashed. However, there was no evidence that the driver had been injured. There was also no evidence that the car had gone off of the cliff without a driver. Authorities searched into her background and learned that she had been on a spiritual quest. Her parents had both passed away recently and she had been in a near-fatal car accident. Also, she had dropped out of school a few weeks before her road trip and instead stayed at a coffee shop in Durham, North Carolina. While there, she spent hours writing in her journal and creating poetry about the meaning of life. She was also enamored of 1950s beatnik Jack Kerouac and was especially interested by one of his autobiographies, Dharma Burns, about leaving middle-class life and going on a journey in the area where she vanished. She also wrote a note to her roommate about how she was not suicidal and implied that she was going to go on a journey like Jack Kerouac. An anonymous tipster called investigators a few days after the disappearance and said that he and his wife were certain that they had seen her at a Texaco gas station in Everett, about 30 miles from Seattle. She appeared confused and disoriented. Cops considered the tip valid until the man hung up without giving his name. They hope that the man will come forward with more information. Friends and family say there are numerous theories as to what may have happened to her. Perhaps the accident was staged and she left voluntarily to live like Jack Kerouac. Another theory is that she survived the car accident and was picked up by a killer while hitchhiking. It is also possible that she received a head injury in the crash and may have developed amnesia or other mental problems. Some believe she may have died elsewhere, and that her killer drove the Jeep over the embankment. Her family and friends still want to know what happened to her, and they are offering a $10,000 reward for information. Leah has never been officially declared deceased, and some organizations continue to organize events to keep the missing woman in people's memories. While the leading theory is that she was the victim of foul play and was killed, it's also possible that she disappeared of her own volition, and is still out there somewhere. 4. Jodi Huisentruit. Jodi Huisentruit was a beautiful, well-liked Mason City, Iowa TV anchorwoman who vanished on June 27, 1995. She had moved to Mason City in 1993 and became an active member of the community. On the morning she disappeared, she was supposed to be at work around 4 a.m. to anchor the morning news. She overslept and was awoken when co-worker Amy Kunz called her at home. Amy did not notice anything wrong. It seemed as though Jodi was awake and getting ready for work as the two talked. When Jodi did not show up, Amy anchored the newscast. Later in the morning, when she still had not arrived at the station, the news director drove to her apartment and discovered some of her possessions scattered around her red Mazda Miata. It appeared that a struggle had taken place at it, and she was probably abducted and forced into a vehicle. An investigation and search began that day. Hundreds of volunteers, the local police, and the FBI searched for her, but no trace of her was ever found. She had no known enemies and there was no other reason to suspect that she had been in any danger. Police have considered the theory that she might have been stalked by an obsessed fan and was later abducted and murdered by this person. However, no suspects have ever been identified. Several neighbors in the apartment complex reported hearing screams at the time that Jodi would have been leaving for work. A white Ford van was seen around her apartment complex at the time she vanished, but it is unknown if it is related to her disappearance. In May 2001, Jodi was declared dead, but her body has never been recovered and her supposed killer has never been caught. In 2015, it was revealed that a witness came forward and linked Tony Jackson, a convicted serial rapist, to Jodi. Jackson was 21 at the time of Jodi's abduction and lived just 2 blocks from her news station. According to the witness, who was a friend of Jackson's, he and Jodi met at a bar shortly before her disappearance. Investigators have yet to officially name Jackson a suspect, however, her case remains unsolved. 5. Tara Grinstead. Investigators spent a second day Wednesday in a South Georgia field searching for the remains of Tara Grinstead. Grinstead disappeared in 2005. Last week, Ryan Duke was charged with her murder. For the first time since the arrest, Grinstead's sister, Anita Gaddis, is breaking her silence about the case. This ripped the scab off the wounds that have never totally healed. Gaddis told Channel 2's Tony Thomas. Had the name Ryan Duke ever popped up? Thomas asked Gaddis. I'd never heard of him, she replied. 4 months after her sister disappeared from Osceola, Anita Gaddis organized search parties and pushed for answers. She's been quiet for the past few years as authorities tried to solve the mysterious case. She spoke to Thomas by phone as agents worked through the pecan orchard just outside of Fitzgerald in Ben Hill County. Agents say they are following leads after Duke's arrest. Grinstead was a former beauty queen and teacher at Irwin County High School. She vanished in late October 2005 from her small one-story home. Police say there were few clues about what happened except for an overturned lamp and a plastic glove found in the yard. Massive searches of South Georgia turned up few clues. Then 11.5 years later, a tip came into investigators that they say led them to Duke and busted the case wide open. Just before a judge issued a gag order in the case, GBI agents told Thomas that they have found some evidence in this field and are testing it to determine if it is connected to Grinstead. Agents spent days zeroing in on this spot. We continued to follow up with more interviews of people who are involved in this, and we've got a little bit more specific location, said GBI agent J.T. Rickardson. "I just want to know why Tara? Why did he pick Tara?" Gaddis said. For others in the area, the search brings back memories of the searches and feelings of despair as they tried to find the missing woman. "It does give me some closure," said 85-year-old James Wilcox. Wilcox lives just down Bowens Mill Highway from where authorities are searching. "When I look at this here, it just takes you back to all that I went through," Wilcox told Thomas. Wilcox spent weeks walking through woods with teams and by himself, hoping to find Grinstead. "A lot of places we went, and now they think they found her within a mile of my house. It's amazing," he said. "When something like that happened in the neighborhood, it upsets everybody, you know. So I went on this search." Wilcox can't remember anyone searching the exact area where authorities are now, but he says they searched just about everywhere else, including directly across the street. Wilcox and others now wait to hear if agents will find Tara's remains, and if anyone else might be arrested. It is Georgia. "Don't believe anything you hear and half of what you see. A lot of rumors going around," said Jim Connell, a nearby resident. Wilcox told Thomas after years of wondering, he's relieved the case may finally be solved. "I'm just glad that they got somebody. I guess they got the right guy," he said as he looked out over the land near the search. Citing the gag order put in place by a judge, GBI agents have not said whether they plan on returning to the land again. The property owner, Randy Hudson, released a statement Wednesday saying in part, "Our most sincere prayers go out to the Grinstead family. I'd also like to say that we are cooperating with the local sheriff's agency and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation in regards to this matter on our farm." 6. April Pitzer. Pitzer resided in Newberry Springs, California in 2004. She previously lived in Arkansas. Following her divorce, she moved to California. After the move, Pitzer had told her mother she was working as a waitress and caring for an elderly invalid, but shortly before she disappeared, a couple of months after she'd moved to California, she confessed she had been lying. Pitzer said she was not a waitress, she hadn't been taking the medication for bipolar disorder, and she had been living on the street and in homeless shelters. Pitzer took a job as a caregiver near Newberry Springs to get back on her feet. She decided to take a bus home to Arkansas. She said she was excited about being able to see her children again and was thinking of reconciling with her ex-husband. Pitzer was last seen in the vicinity of the 30,000 block of Caspian Way in Newberry Springs on June 28, 2004. An acquaintance gave her a ride to a bus station to ride to Arkansas. She never arrived in Arkansas and has never been heard from again. Her mother contacted a friend of Pitzer's in California who reported her missing on July 16. There were rumors that Pitzer had been murdered and thrown into a mine shaft. Police searched 25 mines but didn't find anything. 8 months after her disappearance, an unidentified person in New Mexico attempted to get a cellular phone in Pitzer's name. In late 2005, police found some of Pitzer's belongings in mining areas in the Mojave Desert, about 30 miles from Newberry Springs. This is a very remote area. Pitzer's suitcase and clothes were scattered at various locations over a 3-mile area. One of her nightgowns was hanging in a mining shack. It had been tied in a hangman's noose and pieces of duct tape were present. Some of her other belongings were found in a mine shaft, including desert boots, a swimsuit and undergarments. A mattress and sheet were also found. They were stained with human blood and body fluids. The clothing had been exposed to the weather for a long time and was of little evidentiary value. Investigators stated they had no suspects in Pitzer's case and there is no hard evidence that she is deceased. Although her mother believes foul play was involved in her case, at least 2 of her associates, men connected to the investigation, have died since 2004. Pitzer's mother thinks her daughter may have been murdered as a consequence of her previous work as an informer in a federal case. Her evidence helped send an Arkansas man to prison for 7 years. She met the man's wife after she moved to California, and the wife knew the people Pitzer had traveled with. Pitzer has experience as a model for clothing stores in Arkansas and Texas. Her case remains unsolved. California police are investigating,